Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Sasha Hodder, and we're on the HODL cast. Today is September 18th, and I have a special guest who's a distinguished author, R.L. Breyer. He goes by a different name online, too, John Liberty. So,
yeah, you can go ahead and say that. It's all right.
All right. I was like, well, I didn't talk my name. I hope I didn't just dox him.
You totally just outed me. Yeah. No, it's okay.
We can start over if you want.
No, that's all right. I'm sure.
All right. Well,
thanks for having me on today.
Oh, thank you for coming, and thank you for that great book I read over the past week. It was excellent. So it's called the Blockchain Renaissance. Or am I? Is there
Blockchain Project Renaissance?
Right. Okay. Sorry about that.
It's all
right. And maybe you can give people a little background of yourself and what prompted you to, I guess, get into Bitcoin, and not only just get into it, but get into it enough to write a book like that.
All right. So I guess my genesis in blockchain started in college. I was there studying English, and English majors have a tendency to be like all over the place. I guess they kind of are involved in a lot of different things. So while I was studying English, I was really studying economics, and that came about because I was a pretty big Ron Paul supporter, and I got into that, the liberty movement, the whole thing. He led me to Austrian Economics, and then I went down the rabbit hole into studying Austrian theory, and then it led me to the blockchain and Bitcoin around. I knew about Bitcoin in 2009, but I didn't really I just had a few conversations about it. I didn't start like really, delving into it until like 2011. So then from there, it was just, I became pretty much addicted to the entire concept of decentralization and using it to combat, the ills of society, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so tell us like a little bit about the book, I guess.
Okay.
Or we can kind of go through like we can talk, what was your inspiration for writing it? I think you just kind of led into it like with
Yeah. Well, once I realized that we don't really have sound money, I decided, where it was like it was kind of a dark era in libertarianism, I guess you could say, or anarcho-capitalism. Where are we going to go? Because there weren't a lot of alternatives at that point, even though in 2009 Bitcoin had already been created. It wasn't like as widely adopted as it is today. So I just started looking at like, the alternatives, and then I found out, how important it was going to be. I mean, I always had an idea that it could be important, but once I really started studying it, I read the white paper and all that stuff, saw Satoshi's vision. I just really fell in love with the idea. And then I was that guy on Facebook in like 2011 that was like, buy Bitcoin. Everyone's like, you're crazy, you're a terrorist, whatever. People were so dramatic. But yeah, so then I just started educating.
To you probably loved you.
Yeah, some people did. There's always the people that, whatever, they kind of blow you off or like try to, degrade your ideas. But back then it was like $15 or something, so I saw it becoming more and more powerful over time, and that was kind of I saw people in the last year or two start to really get involved, and I wanted to make sure people were getting the right story. They weren't just, there was a lot of like the Bit Connects and stuff coming up, and I just didn't want people to be ripped off, I guess you could say. I figured it would be good to educate as much as I could do on the subject.
Absolutely. Yeah. What a difference a world it was like back in, I mean, I didn't know what it was in 2009. I think I started hearing about it in 2011 and finally got in 2014. But there was none of this nonsense or, noise or whatever it all is now. Like when you go to the conferences, it's just so different than what it was like a couple years ago.
So, you were an early adopter, like what the kind of, like you said, the noise around it was at that point. A lot of people were still like very pessimistic about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, and so, what other kind of books have you read that led you to, or that you anything you drew on to write this book? And the reason I ask is because I'm currently slowly reading The Creature from Jekyll Island, and I felt like some of what you were saying in this like has a feel of the same mentality, I suppose.
Yeah. Most of my stuff is like Austrian based that I really read. So the first one that I read was probably Man, Economy, and State with Power and Market by Murray Rothbard. I'm like a really big Murray Rothbard fan. And then I got more and more into that stuff, and probably I've become a pretty big Hans Hermann Hoppe fan too. So Democracy, the God That Failed. And I've learned a lot of stuff. I've listened to almost, like, I don't want to say I've seen them all, but I've watched 90% of their lectures, online. So it's not just like reading. Murray Rothbard has like a catalog of lectures online too, and a lot of them were actually recorded by Hans Hoppe when he was like his graduate student or whatever. So there's like, also YouTube is like the greatest thing in the world. There's all this. You don't really need to even go to college anymore. Everything's online. So those guys, and I don't know who else. Probably Hayek, The Road to Serfdom, things like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I need to up my reading on the Austrian side of things.
yeah. That's really. Once I like started looking into the Austrian theory of economics, it was like a light bulb went off, or whatever, I guess you could say, because economics is everything around us. So it's pretty. It's of the utmost importance to understand it, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then, so early in your book, you had a chapter on Metcalfes Law and then, the network effect. Can you kind of give our audience a little preview of that section?
Yeah, Metcalfe's law, it just states that the effect of a telecommunications network is proportional to the square of connected users, the number of connected users. So I think in the book, I sort of broke it down, like used like Facebook for an example.
Or I
And
think, or cell phones, like.
yes, I might have used both. I can't remember now. But a good example, I think, would be like Facebook or something where, in the infancy, I got into Facebook, and like I was like one of the first 1,000 people in the Ohio State network. And
Wow.
now it has like, I don't know, a million people, maybe over a million people, something like that. So I saw this effect in Facebook and stuff. I don't know. So I've had like this experience of like seeing some of these things firsthand for the last like decade or something, or now 14 years, geez. But yeah, so Metcalfe's law is basically the number, of people that come in, like the value of the network basically grows. You can see it like exponentially grow over time, and it becomes like more powerful, I guess you could say, or more useful. It provides more utility.
Mm-hmm. And where do you think we're going with Bitcoin in terms of the network? Like, do you think there will be a time where everyone's using it, or, how far do we go from where we are today?
Yeah, I sort of view it like the internet. I think it'll be just as important as the internet, or maybe more important, because there are already systems being built on top of blockchains that are going to be like their own internet. So, or provide like privatized version.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll be part of everyday life. So whether you're using blockchain or not, you will be using it. Like I could see it in like cars and stuff. For security reasons, like a lot of the new cars are hackable. I can see like blockchains being implemented somehow that way.
Oh, wow. So how, like, to open the car, it would be recorded on the blockchain, or what?
Well, yeah, I guess you could do it like that, but I haven't really like completely worked that out yet. But I think that it'll be like a way to more of a secure a way to make it more secure, like the network that you're on. So like I
So, like,
said, a lot of the
smart
cars are
car.
hackable. Yeah, so a lot of the new cars are hackable because they're just computers, or made up of a lot of computers. So I think that if you had like a really secure, decentralized, distributed network or whatever behind it, you could make sure that your car wasn't hacked by someone that didn't like you. I guess the government
Yeah.
or certain entity.
Yeah. Do you think that it'll ever come, like, so you need a thumb to start your car, and that'll be like attached to some blockchain or something like that, or like where's the limit of it?
That would probably actually be a really good way to secure it.
Instead of having, because it's so hard now, at least, my little interpretation of it is that the security side of the whole cryptocurrency movement, or just taking Bitcoin in general, it's so hard to secure your own. There's a reason that people use banks and trust banks, because they've gotten the security of money down. And now it's like trying to get someone like my mom, for instance, to figure out how to use, a hardware wallet would be a challenge, and she might lose the keys.
Yeah, it might be better so you're not like giving out your thumbnail. So like if you're using it to open your phone, maybe just use math, or like some pin, like a wallet, like an ID. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some sort of like random code. But yeah, I think that is a challenge, like getting your parents and stuff into it. I don't know if it's really going to be that's the real challenge right now, is the implementation of like all these ideas, because there's so many like good people and brilliant people coming into the space, is like making it being able to provide the utility that is there, like just more user friendly, so it won't be as hard to use, I guess. Mm-hmm. For the older generations and the newcomers, like.
Mm-hmm. And I think, the more people using it, then the more value it's going to have, the more places that are accepting it. I saw a news story today that I think it was in Venezuela somewhere, that Uber started accepting it. The government tried to outlaw Uber, and then the Uber driver said, "Oh, well, we'll take Bitcoin and."
Dash is actually I just watched a documentary on that like last month, and Dash the cryptocurrency Dash is like huge in Venezuela now. It's everywhere, so it's like we're seeing the real life implementation, like the vision really come to life there. Yeah, because you need like a stack of cash, how this is like $1 there, $1 or something. Mm-hmm. So it's people like they're going to start using it now.
Mm-hmm. And it's like everyone always said, it's when the dollar collapses, that's when something like Bitcoin really shines. And that's kind of what we're watching in real time with Venezuela right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a really interesting next like 10 years for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, okay. And then you also talked about the how do you say it? The generals problem.
Byzantine Generals Problem. That's just like a distributed computers problem, where it dates back to the Byzantine Empire, and it just shows like, I think in that actual like concept, it was like the four, like in strategic military terms, it was like the four where you could be attacked around a building or something, or a fort. You know what I mean? And it just shows like where the network failure occurred, because they would have no way to like get across. I'm kind of conflating the two, but they would have like back in that empire, they would have no way of knowing that they had been compromised before somebody came in and were like inside their empire. And this is like the same thing that was like the early problem in like Bitgold. It was like the first like attempt at digital money. So that was like double spends and stuff like that, where people would like spend their money twice. And that's what Satoshi solved, was the Byzantine Generals Problem, to where, it was like the entire network is secure now. So there's no way to like get in there and do any, funny business or whatever, for lack of a better, there's no way to get in there and really like confuse the network. And that's really what that problem was, or is, I guess.
And so how is it solved with Bitcoin? Like, I know I've read and seen lots of people saying that that's one of the biggest merits of Bitcoin, is that it solves this problem. But
it's just written into the protocol. Yeah, it's written into the protocol. He was just able to perfect it, really, I guess you could say. I'm not a developer, so I didn't get into that in the book or anything. I actually plan on writing another volume to come out like early next year, and I'm thinking about getting into more of that stuff. But it's written into the protocol that you can't. It's like very, very hard to penetrate, and if you do get in there and confuse the network, it would only last a couple of minutes, they say, and it would be like hundreds of millions of dollars, and it would be a waste of money. It would be more profitable.
It would cost more to do it than you could get out of it.
And it would just be more profitable to actually invest or just mine. Unless it was like, I guess the government or something wanted to take it down, they could try that way. But then, I mean, they're using other people's money to do that. So yeah. And you would know, you would be able to tell who was doing it. They would figure it out.
Okay.
But I mean, we're 9 years in now, and that hasn't happened yet. So I just don't. It seems, like I said, it seems like it's impenetrable, or it doesn't seem like it's possible.
I think it's something too of the fact that the nodes are all around the world. Like, as soon as one person would try and lie to the other nodes, they'd all figure it out, and that's part of this whole
exactly
thing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, there's so many people, there's so many eyes on it now. Like, in the beginning, maybe it would have been easier for them to try something like that, and it still didn't work. So now that, like, you have all this institutional money come in and stuff, it just doesn't seem very likely at all.
Yeah.
I try not to talk in absolutes, though. So
I know, I was just thinking that, like, well, we've seen, a couple days at 20 grand, but some people are here calling, like, 100 grand or $1 million. That would certainly up the stakes to make someone want to hack it even more.
No doubt about that. I actually think it is going to reach $1 million someday, so I don't know.
I hope so.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Move out of this little apartment.
Get yourself a yacht and just live on it, right?
Yeah. But you never know. If it's going up like that, you never want to spend it, because it's like, well, where's it going to go from here?
I think if it went to $1 million, that would be okay. Like, unless the dollar is completely collapsed and we're pricing everything in Bitcoin, which might be where it's going.
But yeah, for it to get to $1 million, that might be why it had the run up.
Exactly.
And then, so you talked also about, I think one quote you said was, "War is a lubricant to the Federal Reserve." Can you elaborate that one too?
Yeah, I mean, today we're like overrun by the military industrial complex. So it seems like there's always money for war, and then no matter what, they want to. There's this idea that central banks can just print money, or it's digitally made today, but that they can just put more pieces of paper into the market without actual like goods being produced, and it somehow it creates value. But that's not the case. So I just view it like the military industrial complex, and the war machine is like that lubricant to the Federal Reserve, because there's a never ending inflation. I think the national debt's like $21 trillion now. So it just seems like it. You can watch the ticker online, and every hour it's hundreds of thousands of dollars going up. So that was one. That's one of my main concerns, is that without any sort of like finite supply, since Roosevelt took us off the gold standard in like the 30s or whatever, whenever it was, I think it was 1933 or something, 31.
Yeah. Or 36, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. I think it was 1931. They confiscated all the gold and all that. So it was, I don't know what they gave, but it just proves that like there's this idea that gold is good money. It's been money for millennia, but there's this idea among gold bugs that like it can't be compromised or whatever. It can't, it's like the best thing in the world. And I think that, Bitcoin has like replicated all the good properties of gold and some. So the distributed nature of it makes it better money, because it's finite, and there's no one going to be able to come and just take it from you. You know what I mean? So.
And I mean, with the gold though, I guess nowadays most people buy it at a bank, so it is registered to them, like it's known and documented who has what gold. But I think back, before the banks were documenting it all, people could just bury it in their backyard or have value from it that way. But nowadays, and the same problem, I guess, with Bitcoin too, some people are doing it all in a way that's very, very clearly documented of who has what and can be seen on, any of these chain analysis things. So I guess it depends on the person. Again, it's like back to the own person has to take responsibility to make sure that their Bitcoin is held in a private fashion that's not visible to all the banks or all the government.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, especially like you said today with the way people buy gold and stuff, and the nature of gold. Like you can't. I've sold my book all over the world now already. Like every continent that's inhabitable. So I don't think I've sold one in Antarctica, but everywhere else, I don't really know how those people would have paid me in gold. So. Yeah, the ones that paid in cryptocurrency, it was like instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems like
gold around the world, and it probably has the same, like rules. How you can't ship cash. I bet you're not allowed shipping gold too.
Yeah, it would be hard to like trust that it would show up at your house.
Yeah, it'd be a little heavy too. And then what are you gonna do with it? You have to take it to a bank and cash it out, or hold it in some vault there. Or
I'm not anti-gold or anything. I still think it's like good to hold some gold if you have like a lot of wealth, and it's going to be money forever probably. But as far as like today, I think Bitcoin and a few other cryptocurrencies could emerge as better stores of value and better money.
Mm-hmm. Just the ease of using it, like you said, being able to get paid in it from around the world in seconds, like it's just so much better than any other form of payment, and it has proved to be a better store of value than pretty much anything else too. So Absolutely. Go Bitcoin.
Yes, Bitcoin for the win.
And then also in your book you talked a lot about the banks and how in the future there's not going to be such a role for banks as there is today, or hopefully there won't be. And while I totally agree that there shouldn't be such a role for them, I think that's going to be an area. I don't think these banks are going to go down without a fight. And so like you said, the next 10 years are going to be a really interesting time to watch. And I don't think it's the regional, little branch of, a credit union that it's going to be a fight with. It's going to be the Federal Reserve, or like they're not even really a bank, but they control all the money. And I wonder, I'm surprised, to be honest, that they've let it come this far, and now there's no stopping Bitcoin, I don't think. It was like a mistake on their part, perhaps, to have not banned it or outlawed it when they first learned about it. But how do you think that'll play out, or why do you think they haven't tried to stop it more?
I think this is like sort of the education part that I try to touch on in the book. Like, it's like our duty or whatever as people, the early adopters, to educate the people that are coming along now. So maybe I sort of view it like maybe we're just going to like educate our way out of this problem to some degree. I mean, not everyone's going to be on board with blockchain and stuff until it's like as easy to use as turning on your iPhone or whatever and like clicking Safari. You know what I mean? Like getting on the internet or whatever, sending a text message. So until then, we're going to have to like really try to educate people about the economic, the reasons it's so desirable and the utility it does provide, like being able to communicate or send money around the world. But the banks are definitely, they definitely missed the all the warning signs. They, by their nature though, they're so like pompous and stuff. It's just like institutional money is like they're playing with other people's money. So that's another problem with like fractional reserve banking, is that they're inherently bankrupt to begin with. So if they go bankrupt, I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but I guess they don't really care if they go bankrupt because they're going bankrupt with other people's money. So we sort of saw that in 2008 or whatever, and that was like the one of the reasons. I think one of the big in the Genesis block, Satoshi Nakamoto, the creators of Bitcoin, put in like the Times of London article about like the bailouts and stuff. So I don't think that there's any way for them to stop it though. Like if there was like they had a desire to like get ahead of it and stop it. That's why I think they put out so much so much like bad press and stuff. Like you had a lot of the big, CEOs or whatever on Wall Street, like coming out and saying like, this stuff is bad, stay away. It's, only drug dealers and like the worst people are using it. So, that didn't work. And then they kind of like, then they didn't really know what to do. And then they were like, all right, we're going to give this like then it was like the narrative was, it wasn't Bitcoin, it's just blockchain. So then they were going to like try to co-opt that and just make it like about blockchain. And that's kind of like what I wrote about in the book too, that there's like this dichotomy, like now they want to make it centralized. They want to like pretend that blockchain is like this centralized thing that without the payment network has any value at all. It doesn't. So I think that's kind of fallen on its face too. And I think just this week, Goldman Sachs, like said they were going to like put off their blockchain, whatever.
Yeah, they said that. I think it was them that. Was it them that said that and then canceled it and they said, oh no, we're not actually putting it off, and then
okay, yeah, I must have missed that. Yeah,
I'm not. So much news comes out. I'm worried I might be saying the wrong news. But one of these banks did come out and say we're canceling it all, and then they came out and said no, that was fake news.
Oh really? Okay. So. Well, it's hard to tell. Like that's part of the thing with the media. Like you can't trust them either because they're they're basically like run by the banks. So
yeah.
So
when you look at Jamie Dimon's comments too, his were like, all along, Bitcoin's horrible, like you said, for drug dealers only. I think it was him that said it was rat poison. But then if you look at his purchase history, he bought a bunch and continued to say it was bad, and then tried to get a ton of patents on blockchain technology, like the same idea, blockchain without the token. It's just so weird.
Yeah, he even came out and like spoke badly about his own daughter about it. Like, she didn't know what she was doing and stuff. And why would you listen to, kids about it? It's something weird, just like trying to make it sound bad. But I don't think the banks have any sort of, no one believes, their credibility is like so low that, I mean, if you can just like penetrate people's, ideas, like so many people have the ideas about banking and all that stuff that like Wall Street's got or whatever, but I don't know, I just think that this is like something that can't be stopped. I think they would have definitely crushed it if they had like all these brilliant minds that in charge that they claim to have, so
yeah. How many times has Bitcoin been dead? Like if you look at the chart, it's so funny. Yeah. Like it's you just see this almost like not straight line up, but a big line up, and every couple time movements forward, it's like, oh, it's dead again. Oh, it's dead. It's dead here. No, not dead yet.
Yeah, I've read like hundreds of Bitcoin obituaries.
Yeah. So funny.
It is. It's like to people that have been around, it's really humorous. But the only thing that sucks about that is they do fool like some people, like the people that don't pay attention to the space like closely. Mm-hmm. They're like, I've heard other people say, I thought that Bitcoin thing died, or it's like, no, it's going pretty strong. It's at an all-time high right now.
Mm-hmm. My mom several times has been like, can you stop, like just get a normal job please?
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. And then so more on like the central banks. So I think like also in your book, you said, the largest monopolies on earth are the governments, and we don't need a central bank. And I was kind of thinking about, I've thought about that over the years, but for some things, I feel like we do still need government, like for building roads or, I'm from Canada, and the government takes care of a lot of healthcare, and I see a good benefit in that. Mind you, it's a heavy tax burden to do that. But so do you think we don't need government at all, or do you think there's some limited role for them, just not as big as it is today, or where do you fall?
I guess I identify as like a voluntarist or anarcho-capitalist, so my idea of government is zero. Mm-hmm. I think there could be like, I know you're like, you have a law degree, right?
Yeah.
Aren't you? Yeah. So I think that that another way to say that is that we should have a private law society where everything is privatized. And I mean, the government is an expropriating protection agency. That in itself doesn't make any sense. They determine the terms and the conditions and how much the rate of expropriation that they're going to administer themselves, and then they protect you, so to speak, I guess. So I think that everything could be done by the private, it could be privatized and done much better, cheaper overall. Just like the idea of money and blockchain itself, this is like privatized money. So this is a really good example of. I don't have any doubt that the free market could build all the roads and take care of people. Ron Paul was. I learned a lot of this stuff from Ron Paul too. He was a doctor, and he treated people for free. He couldn't afford to be treated. Like, that's the sort of mentality I think we need to be like passing around to other people. Like the idea that we don't need compulsion, we don't need like a gun in our face to get things done. And that's like the worst way to get things done is by forcing someone to do it. I think there'd be so much more compassion and charity and stuff like that if there wasn't. I mean, imagine if you could free up all the money that people give the government now through taxation. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not that like the money you would just have all this extra money, I guess you could say, but things would just be so much better. Like, we'd probably be flying around in like jets and spacecraft or whatever by now. I think. So yeah, I just really hate the government a lot. I don't see them doing anything that benefits society, especially since like I said, that from their very onset they only exist out of theft. So I think all the way down, competition in every aspect is good. So why wouldn't we want competition in like choosing our protector, or if like you feel like you need someone to protect you or something, that should be open to like the market. You should be able to choose or your allegiance to whatever group of people that you want to, or there's all sorts. The alternatives would be like vast. It's hard to say like exactly what would happen. Mm-hmm. But it would definitely be, I think the alternative would be like a million times better than what we have. And who would put people in cages for like 80% of the people that are in cages today in jails and prisons are in there for like completely non-violent crimes. So that's like another economic thing. Like the incentive would go away to like put people in cages and stuff. Yeah, the whole thing would be totally different than what we have today. I think the alternative is so much better than what we have, and yeah, I hope that this is like one of the first steps towards that, because it's like a way to starve the state. That's the way I look at it. I think this is like the first step in like completely making them, as worthless as I view them, basically. Like, probably got darts like being thrown at me after this, but so a lot of people still view the government, like you said, as like necessary. I just don't think it is.
Mm-hmm. But are there any examples of countries that have done away with the government successfully?
There's like a lot of examples of like small places where you could go throughout history. Like the Greeks and stuff, that's how they start. They were like, in the Romans and all that stuff, they were like a bunch of city-states. So I think that it's not like there probably would be like government certain places, but it would be so like decentralized that it would be like the power there wouldn't be so much power, to like the United States is completely like omnipotent. So that wouldn't exist. And then with that, you wouldn't have people wasting money on like wars, and instead of developing weapons, all these states take money to develop weapons. That would be going into education or whatever, building the roads, building like having clean water, all that stuff, mm-hmm. Cleaning up the oceans. I think privatizing the oceans would be good. Even, you would figure that out too.
Yeah. And as we come up against more and more resource shortages, I feel like it's going to force us to move to that kind of privatizing, like, so that environmental protection and stuff like that, once it becomes profitable because people need it to survive, like, same thing, it creates more of a free market than the government having to handle it. And I think, like, it's just mind-boggling that there's still places around the world that don't have clean drinking water, and we have all this water in the ocean and we can't figure out how to take salt out of it. Like, it's like, that should be such a basic thing that we know how to do.
Even in like Detroit, there's not clean drinking water, wherever that in Michigan, so that's like a complete failure there. I mean, you can go to Walmart and at least get water that the free market can't, provided you with. But people have, like, there's so much. It's because of the propaganda in the media and stuff too, because they all make money on, like, the ideas that communism and stuff is like a good thing or whatever. I don't know. They're just like, it's like fascism, really. Merger of state and corporate power. So they have, like, all these people in the government that have, like, and they own the media, like I said. So it's like a culmination of all these people, like, brainwashing the youth. Really, that's what universities are in America, at least. I think Canada's a lot like that. I watched Jordan Peterson. He talks about it too. I like Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, me too. I've been watching him a lot lately. Like, he just keeps coming up on my YouTube feed, and I'm like, oh, more.
More Jordan Peterson, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. But
I signed up for his Patreon too, so I don't know. I just signed up last night, so I don't know if it's gonna have, like, even more uncensored type stuff in it. But probably.
I was just listening to him last night. Yeah. I really like him. I just found him a couple months ago, and I was showing my sister him, and she's like, "Wow, he's good." I'm like, yeah, he's pretty awesome. I agree with most of the things he says.
Me too, and he kind of comes at it from a perspective too, where it's like, we don't need government, we just need more common sense. Like, and he doesn't have certainly not into this communist approach. He's into an approach of everyone needs to take care of themselves, and it is some of the things he says about men versus women and their roles in society. I tend to still agree with what he says there too, but it's I think everyone should listen to him, and what he says about, like, men needing to really go out and work and do something and be productive, and that's what's going to create happiness or fulfillment in the life too. And
and like the left is like complete opposite, everything they say is like it's like completely upside down to me. I don't know, but I'm not. You have these different. There's still differences in, like, the ideologies on, like, the lower level, but when you get up to, like, what they really believe behind closed doors, is they're all, like, big government types. That's why I just can't stand statism at all. But, like, Jordan Peterson's, what he's doing is, like, trying to, I think, still take advantage of that binary left-right thing. Like, I agree with most everything he says, like, philosophically and stuff. But he's, like, pandering, I guess, to, like, not just, like, he has his group of people he's trying to, like, educate more than others, I would say. But you get his message out to, and then from there, they educate. It's just like one of those things, I guess, pass it on. But yeah, I was watching one yesterday where they were attacking him, and all these college students, and he's just like, what they teach today is even more incredible than, like, when I was in school, like, 8 years ago, like, learning this stuff. So it's like, that we don't have genders and all that stuff. That's another show.
I know. Yeah, I heard him and Joe Rogan talking about, like, now in Canada, and Jordan Peterson was saying it's coming to America too, that we have to use, there's like 18 new words to use for he and she.
Gender pronouns. Yeah. Yeah. It's insanity, literally.
Yeah. But so I guess, that's like another thing of the government, they can tell us what words we have to use, all this other things, but
it's like everything.
Oh shoot, it went quiet.
Are you there?
I am, yeah. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Yeah, I don't know. My sister just called me.
Oh.
That was weird. I had it on Do Not Disturb. I don't know what has happened. But what was? Did you say something else? I'm sorry.
Um, I can't remember where exactly we were with it, but the next question I had was the interopera you had talked about.
Oh yeah, interoperability.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like the idea where that's really how I think full I don't want to call it full adoption, but like the increase of adoption, the rate of adoption will like take off is because all these blockchains, a lot of them are going to start. It's already started. They're like, I think you know about this, but I listened to one of your other shows. The idea that they're going to be like build on, be able to build on top of each other and like talk to each other. So you'll be able to like use Litecoin and Bitcoin together. And that's already happening with the Lightning Network. So that's an example of like interoperability where you're going to be able to send money, from one cryptocurrency and blockchain to another. So that'll definitely help speed up the rate of adoption and just like usage, total usage.
Now, do you think that's going to happen coming from people like Starbucks using it, or like what's going to drive that adoption?
Yeah, I think any sort of like use case where you're going to be like going to spend the money, spend
Mm-hmm.
your crypto, will definitely help speed it up. So anytime you do a transaction and you have two blockchains that can talk to each other or whatever, that'll that's gonna be huge in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Once the top 5 or 10 can talk to each other, um, that'll probably be like a very monumental moment. There's a handful right now that can like do that or whatever, but yeah, when that happens, you'll probably see it really take off even faster than it is now. The rate will probably speed up.
What I like about that second layer stuff is, and like I think I've disclosed many times, I'm not super technical. I'm still trying to gain a full understanding of this, and maybe I never will. Maybe I don't need to. But what I think is cool about it is that it's going to tangle these things up. Like the way I see it, like if you and me are say I wanted to buy your book, but we didn't want to make a trace of the transaction. So we use second layer something. No one can see that transaction happened until it gets recorded with 100 other transactions. So
Mm-hmm.
from a tax perspective, you wouldn't, I, again, don't want to make these big arrows come on our head looking how to avoid taxes, but you've
Yeah,
already kind of explained your thoughts on them.
yeah,
And I kind of tend to agree. And if we were able to do the transaction like that, it would be very hard for anyone to determine what your income was from selling your books. So I think that's a pretty cool direction that these things are taking. It was like that was one of the best things in my opinion about Bitcoin when I first learned about it, was that it was private and no one could see what I was doing or what I was getting paid in with it. If I was, it was just like I felt like it was a tax-free way of operating. And then all of a sudden, now with Coinbase last year coming out and, they got that subpoena, the IRS looking into it. The IRS had come out in 2014 saying they were considering it property, but it's like, my motivation to pay tax is on what, or anything in life. It's like, how far can you get away with without getting caught, and reasonably, like, so, what's a reasonable risk versus the reward. And, I'm paying, I will be, I shouldn't be getting into my own taxes.
yeah. You don't have to talk about it.
But,
That's like the beauty. You really don't have to disclose it, but I understand what you're
yeah,
saying. Yeah,
but that's, I
yeah,
think, what it was an annoying thing that happened with Bitcoin with all these enterprises, and all the attention coming into it brought the attention more of the IRS and of the regulators. Before, it was just kind of a thing that a few people were doing, and I think they were kind of ignoring it all along. And then last year it blew up, and then everyone the government was like, oh, well, we need to get our piece of this. And when they looked at it, I think they found there was like less than 1,000 people had paid taxes on any kind of Bitcoin. And I'm sure that changed last year. Like I can, I'd imagine they got a lot of people paying taxes on it. But now with the second layer stuff, it's going to be pretty hard for the government to determine what is taxable income in that mix.
The sidechain stuff's really cool. And that's like why the real privacy coins, like we found out that Bitcoin wasn't as anonymous as we thought. You can't, it is somewhat traceable or whatever. So, I mean, it takes like somebody who really knows what's going on to trace it. And I don't even think the IRS really could. I mean, if they want to find someone, like they found Ross Ulbricht, for example, the guy who allegedly ran the Silk Road. But, so they really don't have the resources to find if you're using like another layer or whatever. That's just not going to happen.
And I don't think they found him from his Bitcoin wallet. I think they found him from other stuff on his, like they were outside his home with some raid. Well, obviously they found him before that to know where he lived and stuff, but they were tracking his like internet browsing usage.
Yeah, I just read American Kingpin. It's the book all about him. Yeah. Unfortunately, what they're saying, like, who knows what really happened, how they really did it. They could have used, like, a number of methods, but they say that, like, exactly what you said, like, they went through his some guy, like, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. The whole thing seems really, like, hard to believe, but they like, used his email that he accidentally put into one forum that was online, and they traced it back to him over time. I don't know. But that whole thing is, like, so depressing, too. He's like exhausted all of his like appeals to get out. So I'm hoping that like maybe Trump
bit left. So he has one 2255 motion he can do. He has a year to do it from the time his appeal got denied, like last year. And what they have to do with that is say that his first lawyer, Draytel, was so inadequate that he failed to do things that would have resulted in a different outcome. So if that can get proven, and there's a couple big things that could come to light with that. So Andreas Antonopoulos was not allowed to be an expert witness, but Draytel, the lawyer, submitted his old LinkedIn profile, and Andreas had updated it, but the judge only saw this old, barely filled in thing and said, this is no expert. I mean, maybe there was some, like, maybe the judge would have looked at his good quality LinkedIn profile and came to the same conclusion, but possibly not. We can't know now. And because that lawyer failed to provide the updated credentials of Andreas wasn't there to be an expert witness to the jury. And the FBI agents that testified, which it wasn't the lawyer's fault on this, but those same agents are the ones that stole the Bitcoin later and went to jail. But they said stuff that was wrong technically, and Andreas has come out and said, well, if I was there, if they had have let me be the expert witness, I would have explained to the jury how those statements were incorrect. So that's a pretty big thing on itself. And then there's also the fact that someone logged in as Dread Pirate Roberts while Ross was in prison. There's no way Ross could have logged in there. And Draytel, his lawyer, didn't find that information. So it wasn't able to bring that to the jury's attention that there's obviously more than one person able to access this thing. So how can you say that absolutely it was Ross? So
I really hope that they figure something out. I had read that it was like he was out of appeals or heard it.
He is out of appeals. This is like a last ditch effort, but but it's one more shot. And then if this were to win, and these 2255 motions hardly ever do win, but in this case, I think the facts are so egregious that if it's a reasonable judge, and the judge usually it comes back before the same judge that would have sentenced Ross to that horrible sentence, but she's retiring now, so some other judge is the one that's going to look at it. So
if you look at like how they sentence the other people involved, like the head drug dealers and stuff, some people didn't even go to jail.
10 years. Yeah, some didn't get any jail. He got such a crazy sentence, and he didn't, they took every crime that was ever done on the website, which, as you said, like, it's crazy that drugs are even like I don't think they should be criminal, because using that website, it probably stopped a lot of violence that takes place in the person-to-person drug transactions, and people are still going to do drugs whether the government says they can or not. We've seen for, all of history that people have a tendency to want to get messed up, and do
Yeah.
drugs, and no one's going to be able to stop that. So putting people in jail for 2 life sentences plus 40 years for operating a website that allowed people to safely get their drugs mailed to them without having to go, shoot people on a bad, or whatever happens on
Yeah.
on the street. But
He created like a better environment for everybody involved in
yeah.
that. So yeah, and you own your own body, so that's like another thing. Separate case. Like nobody should be able to tell you what you're putting into your body inside your own, on your own property, which is really not even your property since you pay taxes on it. But you know what I'm saying? Like inside your home or whatever, you should be able to do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anyone else. But yeah, that whole thing is like insane. They wanted to they obviously wanted to just like make a example out of him. I think the judge, even though those were her exact words, like you wanted to have this legacy or whatever, and now you do something like that. To paraphrase it. So like they just made an example out of him.
And she said something like, you haven't learned from your mistakes here. Like, we think you still have the same ideology as you did before this came in, or this happened. And almost as if it was a religious belief, or and no judge is allowed to say that. Like, we're allowed to believe whatever we want to believe, whether it's a religious or political belief. That isn't the judge's call, and that shouldn't have been something that goes into factor of giving a sentence. And then there was this Silk Road 2.0 person that got like 2 weeks in jail.
Yeah, they act like they're gonna shut it down. Rabbits out of the hat. Like it's not. You can't stop that idea.
Yeah. And news just came out, I think today or yesterday, that a guy actually from Canada that was running some AlphaBay or something, some other, dark web place where you could buy drugs. He got arrested in Thailand and killed himself in a Thai prison, and the government got 23 million worth of Bitcoin, or like 5 different coins. Like, how did they get it? Like, I wonder why he gave them his private keys, or, how did they, that was, poor. And I wonder, who knows if he actually died or was murdered or what happened in the Thai prison. But
that's like the scary thing about like all the FBI and all that stuff that were involved in the DEA, I think, and all that. The different factions that were involved in his case, like who knows? Because we know they stole millions of dollars in Bitcoin. So who's to say they didn't completely frame him? I don't know.
That's what. Yeah.
It's interesting to hear your like law take on it, though. I didn't know that he had like one last chance, other than a pardon.
And the pardon might be, more like I'm not. I've never dealt with a 2255 motion, but everyone that I've talked to about it who has experience in it say they never win. So I think when people say he's out of options, it's borderline true, but it's, stranger things have happened in life than this. If this motion were to go through, he would get a new trial. But
that would be nice. That would be nice to see. My
what
dog
kind
likes
of dog?
that too. I have a Staffordshire pit bull.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's a big baby and thinks that my attention is all hers. So
pit bulls are really nice. Like, they have really nice personalities.
Yeah,
they got a bad rep, just like Bitcoin.
Oh, this dog is so sweet, but yeah, she's a monster if you like try to come around me.
Oh yeah. Does she chew through her toys too?
She doesn't like chew as much as she used to.
Oh, that's good. Okay, well, we're getting close to the to being done, I guess, so you can.
Sorry.
The dog will be happy.
Yeah.
In your book, the last section, you kind of put a roadmap for deciphering scams. I thought that was really helpful.
Let me go on the move here. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the SEC put out their own kind of way to decipher scams on that, like, Howie page a little while ago too, but I thought yours was better. Give us a little.
Sorry, I had to leave her in the other room.
Aw.
Okay, so the scams, yeah, I just think that the best like way to like go about that is completely educate yourself before you get involved in it at all. So sorry, that wasn't optimal to leave the room like that. But yeah, so make sure that you aren't trusting like somebody who just started doing commentary or whatever like the week before and is like pitching you some project that is all these things that are like promising you like a certain return every day, like the BitConnects and all that stuff. I think that that's the best way, and then like look at the people that have been around for a long time and all that stuff. Read all the literature out there, do your own research, that sort of thing. Because if you don't, you definitely will be taken advantage of. It's just like what happens to people in the beginning. And if you're going to move around money, I would say like this isn't like on the scam side, but if you're going to like start sending money around and stuff, like make sure you start doing it with like smaller increments. Don't like try to send an entire whatever the cryptocurrency or whatever. Don't start like sending entire bitcoins around at once or something, because you could make a mistake, like if you're off like one number or something, it could like destroy your life. Like you don't want to send like a certain value to somebody that you didn't mean to, because if you don't really know that person, then it's gone. It's like you're not getting it back if they're not trustworthy, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something I find too as like a scam alert is people use the buzzwords a lot in their either what they're writing, or if you look on their LinkedIn profile and they're a blockchain evangelist or a thought leader, some of the different, well, some people use those words, like I don't want to offend people by
I have evangelists on my Twitter.
Yeah, oh, you do. Oh,
yeah, but I am like an evangelist, so like I bet like that. I'm like the church of blockchain or whatever, I guess.
The church of Blurk.
The what?
The Church of Blurk.
Yeah. But no, it's true. Like if they say they're like Bitcoin Jesus or something, you might well a lot of that's like Roger Vere's nickname. He was one of like the early investors in Bitcoin. Runs a lot of Bitcoin Cash companies now, but you'll find pretty fast who you can trust and stuff. Like I said, if somebody's promising you something that sounds too good to be true. Bitcoin is already, like, if you look at a compound interest over time or whatever, like is like an asset, it has gained over 1% a day since it became a currency. So
wow.
If someone's promising you more than that, you are like too greedy. Like I'm everyone's greedy, but if you're like falling for these traps, then you kind of deserve it, I guess.
Yeah, Bitcoin's the only get-rich quick scheme. Just kidding. It's not a scheme. It could go to zero.
That's funny.
But,
yeah, that's funny. No, I'm not a big Bitcoin maximalist. I like a lot of the projects. I like Litecoin. I'm not anti-Ethereum or anything. I think Ethereum has its like own, use cases and all that. But I like Steem a lot too. Those are like some of the ones I talked about in the book. I think Steem is like really cool. Yeah, where you can use you can post. I don't know. Are you on Steam?
I've tried to set up a Steam account a couple times, and I never finished it. Like it wasn't an easy they send you the code and then you have to put it in, and I never got all the way done. But
yeah, I like Steemit a lot. It runs on the Steem blockchain. I started like publishing my book on there or whatever. I'm like. So you can do, there's like hundreds of dApps now, decentralized applications, and on the Steem blockchain. So there's going to be like, people producing there's so many different avenues that you can take with blockchain. People are going to be like using it to produce their music, their films, their books. It's like inevitable use cases really, but Steemit's one of those ones where you post and you can like create content and curate it on there, and then your reward is cryptocurrency by upvotes. So that's pretty cool to me.
Steam tokens or?
Yeah, there's Steem, and then there's Steem backed dollars. There's like two different ones on there, and then there's Steem Power, which is like you get a little bit of each, like every time you like gain reward. So the best ways to like
And does
gain
it
the
cost to upvote? Like if I wanted to go on and upvote you, do I have to pay crypto to get it to upvote? So
no
where does that crypto come from that you're gonna get?
other investors in the project, and like you're basically like confirming transactions on. This is coming from Dan Larimer, that's like blockchain guru. He's the one that created Steem, and he's behind EOS and all that too. And the way that he explains it is, you are confirming transactions basically with your content and stuff, like when you post on there. So it's really interesting. It's like way. It's very, there's a lot. It's an intricate like thing. I don't claim to understand every single aspect of it, but yeah, that money is coming from that, and like the ultimate like other people that have invested on there. So it's pretty neat. Yeah. Best way to gain money on there is like start posting like every day. That's where I started posting my daily vlogs. And if you get like someone who runs like a moderator to start uploading your stuff, that it starts to like add up, over time. And then you can like set it up through there. Like you can then just switch right into another crypto if you want. You can send your Steem to like block trades or something like that, and then turn it into Bitcoin.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I should check it out more.
You should check it out. You should be posting your podcast and stuff on there probably.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't get a lot of. Well, I guess it would. I think I'm pretty far from the audience you need to like monetize a podcast type thing, but maybe
you would be surprised.
Like yeah,
I think you would probably do well in there. Yeah,
I'll give it a shot.
You should do it. You should definitely do it. It's I don't know. I've met a lot of good people on there. Like I'm doing my fantasy. I've never done fantasy football, and I got talked into doing fantasy football on there. So I'm doing like my fantasy football league is on Steemit. So
oh, cool.
I don't know. It's just like you meet people like that too, and it's taken off too. Like they're having their own conferences and stuff for it. I got invited to one, like I think it was last week in Canada, but I just didn't get to go.
Oh yeah.
I was in Toronto last week. Yeah.
Or maybe it's this week. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish I would have been able to go, but I just can't. I couldn't make it.
Yeah. So, are you selling your book on Steem or?
Yeah, I've sold copies on there. If you want to get a hold of my book, the best way to get a hold of me overall is just through my email. I've got like 5 people in the last few weeks like give me admin privileges to their websites, like wanting me to like help them with their websites and put my book on there, but I just haven't had really an opportunity to do it. I'm not very good at web design to begin with, so best way to get a hold of me though about that is like Pittsburgh, the city, and then HODLR, HODLR @gmail. If you want to like get a copy of the book, that's the best way to get a hold of me. Or I'm also Pittsburghhodlr on Steemit.
Okay.
And then you outed me on Facebook already as John Liberty. So no, it's all right. John Liberty on Facebook, but I'm like almost maxed out on there with my friends. So, but if you get on there and you write me a message that you're interested in the book.
Okay.
And then also one last thing.
Put your email in the link of this video too. So.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Hopefully
and then on Twitter @rbriar23.
Okay. And how much is it for people to know? Or
well, I pinned the price to Litecoin at 0.2, and then that was kind of hard to deal with. So now it's I've been selling it for like 18 digital and 23 physical. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you have a physical one too.
I printed the copies myself. It's not actually like I like I said, I published it on the Steem blockchain, so I didn't I haven't had any like buddy do it. It's just like me printing it up. But everyone's been pretty cool about that. Like nobody's been like too upset that I just like printed it myself. So.
Oh no, I think it's a cool way to do it.
Yeah, I'm like doing everything. I did it all. Like marketing, selling it.
How many copies have you sold?
I'm approaching 200, and it came out in June. So
nice.
I've been trying to like sell as many as I can. So, but that was it like came about. I guess I should have prefaced with that, but I was talking to a friend one day, another person I met through blockchain, and we were just talking about the ideas and stuff, and he's like, yeah, you should just write a book about. I was like, would you buy it if I wrote a book? And he's like, yeah, I would. And he was like, basically that was it. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. So I wrote the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like you can never go wrong with writing something like that because, yeah, it probably took a lot of hours of time, but you're that much smarter for it anyway. So even if the financial side weren't to come back, which it sounds like it is going to, you've already sold 200. There's no limit on how many you can sell.
Mm-hmm.
But it's worth doing for the knowledge that you gain anyway.
Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it, and I've met a lot of people that way. That's one thing about like the blockchain space is like you meet a lot of like-minded people, good people.
Yeah,
but the monetary reward's all right too. I like that. So
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you thought about reading it out and putting it on Audible?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about doing that until the last couple weeks. I've had a lot of people like, oh, I love audiobooks. And I'm
That's
like,
how I consume most of
okay.
my books these days.
Yeah, you said that too. So now I'm thinking maybe I should just I don't know. I don't have like the best voice. Maybe I need to get somebody else to read it, do it themselves. I don't know. I don't feel like I have like the audiobook voice,
They say to hire actors for
Yeah.
it, but who knows how much the actors cost. But I've heard people do it themselves too, and it's kind of nice when it is the author reading it because you can tell they're passionate about it versus just someone actor, going through the motions with it.
That's a good point. Yeah, and maybe get the emphasis where you want it.
Yeah. But who knows? But on Audible, I think people pay, you can set whatever price, but you could charge, it just would expand you to a bigger audience.
Yeah, then I could probably get it on iTunes and stuff too. That's a really good idea.
Or
the iTunes store, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get it done. It looks like it needs to be done. So
yeah, it would be a cool project to walk through too.
Yeah.
But
I'll let you know if it comes out on audio. You'll get the first one.
Okay, I'll buy a second.
I'll just send it to you. You'll get the first one. I promise. All right?
Okay. And well, I'll make sure we put everything like your email and how to get it on the link here for the huge audience that's going to read the description. But maybe maybe you'll get a couple sales out of it. I know
that'd be nice.
The tax guy I had on, Peter, a few weeks ago, I saw him the other day and he said he got 2 new clients from it. So
that's awesome.
Someone's obviously someone listened and took action. So maybe if we could get 10 book sales from this.
I plan on reposting it too, as long as you don't mind. So I'll put all out my stuff. It'll be on Steemit and stuff. So you'll be on Steemit before you even are on Steemit.
Before I get on it. Cool.
There's incentive to go check it out right there.
Okay, cool. Well, any parting words for us?
No, just I guess I would say just stop using fiat money and stop get out of their systems as much as possible, or the controlled system paradigm as much as possible. Start decentralizing your life. It'll help us all in the long run. Otherwise, we'll all be part of this centralized blockchain, which I thought that's the opposite, the binary opposite. That we definitely don't want every single thing we do our entire lives to be recorded. So we have to choose wisely.
And it feels like that's where it's headed too. And even with this blockchain stuff, it can go one of 2 ways here. If it goes to that centralized way, then it's everything will be recorded.
Yeah, it'll be hard to turn back from everything being on there. So
yeah.
And I like that HODL poster in the background.
Oh, thank you.
That's cool.
That's the guy that does the cover art. I met him in the Bitcoin. Have you heard of it? It's a party game. Anyway, he's a phenomenal artist, and the first time I met him, I did a post after that Giancarlo and Jay Clayton speech in February, and he had that Giancarlo Pepe. It's actually a GIF, and it's really pretty, the background moves. Anyway, I asked him if I could use it in my blog, and then we got to know each other. He lives in England, but now he does my cover art for the podcasts too.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have some more Pepes at UPS that I'm gonna have for next week.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking with you, and also I learned a lot from reading that, so I appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and having me on today. It was fun.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
We'll have to talk some other time.
Absolutely. Yep. All
All
right.
right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.